All right, these are notes on cellular respiration, and these notes go into your AP Bio Spiral notebook. Okay. So we've always talked about mitochondria being the powerhouse of the cell before, but now we need to step it up a notch. So we're a little bit more sophisticated researchers. And so now we need to realize that mitochondria are not just the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria are the site of ATP synthesis by oxidative phosphorylation. Mitochondria are the site of ATP synthesis by oxidative phosphorylation. So ATP synthesis, making something, and this is the process by which we make ATP in the mitochondria. Okay, redox reactions are an important part of this. Redox reactions means oxidation/reduction reactions. Redox reactions are just about electron transfer to make a compound, make a molecule, make itself more stable. So redox reactions are oxidation reduction reactions, and they're all about electron transfer to make something more stable. When we talk about redox, we're either gaining or losing electrons. So oxidation, whenever you see oxidation, oxidation is the loss of electrons. So something is oxidizing, it's losing electrons. Reduction is gaining electrons. Reduction is the gain of electrons. So oil rig helps to remember oxidation and reduction. So we've talked about ATP several times now. Here is our molecule, our diagram to represent the structure of ATP. So here's a very simple molecule, our 5-carbon sugar, our adenine, and our 3 phosphate groups. This one up here is a little bit more, gives you a little bit more detail. So we know that the sugar, the 5-carbon sugar, is ribose, and adenine is our nitrogen base. And then we have 3 phosphate groups that are attached over here. And remember, the secret to the energy release is breaking off one or more of those phosphate groups. Okay. Chemical formula, chemical equation, I should say, for cellular respiration. Here's the reactants, and here are the products. C6H12O6 plus 6O2. So, molecule of glucose and 6 oxygen molecules. Yields, our arrow indicates the reaction. 6 water molecules plus 6 carbon dioxide molecules plus ATP. So C6H12O6 is glucose, O2 is oxygen gas, H2O is water, CO2 is carbon dioxide, and ATP is energy. So where do we get this from? We get the glucose from our food. We get the oxygen gas from the air that we breathe. Water and carbon dioxide are waste products of the process. So important organ systems involved. Glucose, digestive system is important because we get it from our food. We've got to break down that food in order to get the glucose from it. Oxygen from the air that we breathe, that's part of our respiratory system to get that oxygen into our cells. Waste product is water, and so that waste product is removed by our urinary system. If our urinary system does not remove this waste product and we have too much water in our body, then we have hypotonic body fluids. Hypotonic, too much water, means that water is going to move along its concentration gradient, so it's going to go from the blood into the cells, which we know is not a good thing. Carbon dioxide is another waste product, and carbon dioxide is removed by our respiratory system. We have too much carbon dioxide, it makes our body fluids acidic. So too much carbon dioxide can make our body fluids acidic, and obviously that's not good because then if it's acidic, if our blood is acidic or our body fluids are acidic, it's going to react with cells in our body. All right, so next on a page all by itself, I have a lovely mitochondria diagram. So here's the picture on the paper by itself. Then I have information underneath each of these doors. All right, so looking at the mitochondria structure, outside of the mitochondria, it says cytosol. So cytosol and cytoplasm are not exactly the same, but we're going to look at them the same for our intents and purposes. So the mitochondria is within the cytosol. And I have a G and an arrow and a P and an arrow. This indicates that glycolysis takes place outside of the mitochondria. It takes place in the cytosol. The P is our pyruvate oxidation, and so that's going to take place in the matrix. So it's going to take place through those cell membranes in the matrix of our mitochondria. I have these numbers down here. Number 1 represents the outer membrane. The outer membrane surrounding the outside of the mitochondria. The little dots that are drawn in are ribosomes, and so they're there for protein production. Number 2 represents the inner membrane, so this is the outer membrane, and here is the inner membrane. Number 3 is intermembrane space, so that is the space between the outer membrane and the inner membrane. Number 4 is the folds of the membrane, the cristae. And number 5 is the matrix, and that's that space between those inner membranes there. All right, so oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation includes the electron transport chain, and it includes chemiosmosis. Oxidative phosphorylation includes the electron transport chain, and it includes chemiosmosis. It occurs in the inner membrane of the mitochondria along the cristae, along the folds there. It is a series, there are a series of proteins embedded in that membrane that pump hydrogen ions, or hydrogen protons, to create a gradient to power chemiosmosis. So proton is a positive ion. It occurs in the inner membrane of the mitochondria along the cristae, along the fold of that inner membrane. And there are a series of proteins that are embedded in that membrane that help to pump those hydrogen protons to create a gradient. We need to have that concentration gradient in order to power chemiosmosis. So that was oxidative phosphorylation. Citric acid cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle. Okay. So also known as the Krebs cycle. It occurs in the mitochondrial matrix once pyruvate has been oxidized into acetyl-CoA. So the Krebs cycle, citric acid cycle, occurs in the mitochondrial matrix once pyruvate has been oxidized into acetyl-CoA. It completes the metabolic breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide and water. Completes the metabolic breakdown of glucose into carbon dioxide and water. A 4-carbon oxaloacetate combines with a 2-carbon acetyl-CoA to form a 6-carbon citrate. So 4-carbon compound combines with the 2-carbon compound to form a 6-carbon compound. 4-carbon oxaloacetate combines with 2-carbon acetyl-CoA to form 6-carbon citrate. And the citrate then cycles, the 6-carbon compound cycles, forming carbon dioxide and, more importantly, NADH and FADH2. These guys right here are electron and proton acceptors, and they take those to the electron transport chain, so they're very important. The hydrogen ions and electrons are picked up by NAD plus and FAD to create NADH and FADH2, and they will be used to create ATP in the electron transport chain. Hydrogen ions and electrons are picked up by NADH and NAD plus and FAD to create NADH and FADH2 will be used to create ATP in the electron transport chain. Okay, so the next 2 pages I've turned the notebook sideways so that I have my 3 foldables right here. This first one at the top. There we go. So I have 3 sheets of paper. This long skinny one, this is for the electron transport chain. And then we have 2 others. One is a little bit bigger than the other one. The bigger one is for the citric acid cycle. The smaller one is for glycolysis and pyruvate oxidation. So for this smaller one, notice that I've folded them in as doors. And I just, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta turn it this way. So, not this way, but this way. And then this top door is just a little bit bigger than the bottom door, so I'm kind of scooting it just a little bit, just so that it's about like that. All right, so let's go over the foldable first, and then we'll go over the information that's around it. Glycolysis. Glycolysis occurs in the cytosol/cytoplasm. Remember, we're using those terms as though they're the same. Glycolysis occurs in the cytosol and splits glucose into pyruvate. Pyruvate oxidation occurs in the matrix. It occurs inside the mitochondria, in the matrix of the mitochondria, to create acetyl-CoA.